Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees. So I wanted to spend a little time this morning to speak about something that I heard in a class, not so much the class itself, but some of the questions that arose from the class. It wasn't a class that I had facilitated. It was actually a class that was just at one temple, and devotees asked questions naturally at the end of the Bhagavatam class. And it's not the first time, Dandavat Sadhan Siddhapavo, it's not the first time, but on many occasions I've heard questions which echo a certain sentiment, which I think needs to be addressed. And that is apparent absence of the knowledge of exactly what is Sambandha Gyan. In other words, devotees have begun the practice of bhakti or are very tenured in the practice of bhakti in terms of years, but not perhaps very clued in, so to speak, as to exactly what is the practice and what it entails. And I don't mean the ritual order or the ritual process. I mean the underlying bhakti science, for lack of a better word. So, in particular, when it comes to understanding this particular thing called Sambandha Gyan, which means what is our relationship with Sri Krishna, and hence the process of bhakti, there seems to be a lack of understanding. And that lack of understanding is in many cases reflected in how devotees view their worshipable objective. So for instance, the general understanding for many devotees is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I don't think anyone who practices bhakti under any genuine sampradaya would have an argument with that. In fact, the Paribhasa Sutra, means the definition verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, says, Eti chamsa kala pumsam Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna Swayam Bhagavan. There is no doubt about this, there's no question about this, and I'm speaking in Tattva Gatta Vichar, means I'm speaking according to Tattva. According to Rasa Vichar, there are some considerations, but I want to stay on one track first. So certainly nobody disagrees that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna has unlimited manifestations, plenary portions, incarnations. So how do we understand our particular relationship with Krishna? Is it a generic idea that I am the servant of Krishna, Krishna's God, and Krishna's all of these various incarnations, beginning Ramadi Murteshu Kalam, Yamena Tishtan, etc., beginning with Lord Ram and just unlimited incarnations, which Bhagavatam describes flows just like a river, right? That there's just unlimited incarnations. So what is my actual relationship with my worshipable objective? Is it a generic relationship with all the various manifestations of Krishna? Is it a relationship with a specific form of Krishna? How does that work? How does that tie in to what my experience in the practice of bhakti has been? What does that have to do with the particular chanting of the Maha Mantra? And further, what does that have to do with, quote, Diksha, or some members say Diksha, quote, second initiation? How does all of that align? Well, these are some of the things that devotees, when they want to make their practice serious, have to inquire about. We have to ask the question what it is to first accept Harinam, to then receive Diksha, to then practice Sadhan Bhajan. What are these things? And I was explaining over the last couple of days on our phone conference group that the necessity to understand artam. Artam means the meaning. And not only artam here will mean meaning in terms of simply word definition, but artam meaning the purpose, the established purpose for which we're doing the things we're doing. If there can't be a synthesis of consciousness in that regard, it will create a void. It'll create a void. Like, why am I doing this? What is Krishna in relation to myself? Obviously, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but is that the nature of the relationship I have? He's God, I'm his servant, that's it. So, by not asking, because remember, the entire process of spiritual life is based tadvidi pranipatena pariprishna sheva. So prishnena means inquiry, with an attitude to serve. And also pranipat means with saranagati and humility. So these three elements have to be there, but pariprishna is so important. Same thing is quoted. What is this verse? Jigyashu shreyuttamam. Tajmat gurum papajeta jigyashu shreyuttam. To inquire about the ultimate welfare means to get all of these kinds of details around what it is I've dedicated my life to. And especially a devotee, even if it's one day, you should try to have this inquiry. But what to speak of, it's been 10, 20, 30, 40, working to 50 in cases, some cases, years of involvement. Because if you don't answer these questions, the practice will sort of axiomatically turn into niyamagraha. So niyamagraha means ritualistic practice, or anustanic practice is another term for it. Which means I adhered to the rituals of practice, but I'm not clear on what exactly should be the internal reciprocation with what I'm doing, because there's many missing links, so to speak, between what I'm doing and what I'm understanding. So I've spent a great part of both traveling and in other settings speaking about these things for my own edification as well, because certainly when you are doing a seva of serving Harikatha of our Guru Vargas, then it is for one's own benefit as well as in the sharing, there is mutual benefit. So I'm bringing up some points for consideration in how to begin to reconcile some of those missing links, so to speak, in the practice and the understanding. So one, the purpose of Sambandha Gyan is to create within the consciousness of an aspirant a particular impression of a particular relationship with God. That's what the Sambandha Gyan is for. How is Sambandha Gyan obtained? This is what is called Diksha. Divya Gyanam yato dhajyat kuryat papasa samshaya. So they've described what is Diksha. Diksha means the process of giving transcendental knowledge and giving the potency to remove obstacles, including sin, anarthas, etc., from the revelation of that transcendental knowledge. To remove those unwanted obstacles out of the way so that the purity of transcendental knowledge can illuminate the chitta or consciousness. So now, there are two kinds of Sambandha Gyan. One is called Samanya Sambandha Gyan. When Sanatana Goswami Pad asked Mahaprabhu to Kayami, Kenyamai, Jaritapatrai, who am I and why am I suffering? This question, I've mentioned before, is symptomatic of something called mati. Mati means the point of discrimination that arises when a person begins to question the material existence. and they start to question, this cannot be the all in all. I only have experienced that this duality of trying to enjoy but suffering, the temporality of this material body, is given rise to asking the question, what else is there? And actually, who am I? Because I don't have full resonance with this idea of just being a temporary material body in the material world, going through the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death, etc. So that question arises, Ke ami, who am I? Kene amai? Jareta patrai. And under the influence of the three modes of material nature, there's always suffering. Even when you eke out some, quote, enjoyment, it's always accompanied at some point by suffering. So why am I under this cycle, and what is my true identity? This was a question asked to Mahaprabhu. This mentality is called mati, or the discrimination that is the genesis or beginning of breaking the cycle of samsara. Right? There's one verse like that. Sava sangamena ratnya ankura rupa eva mati. In the association of sadhus, Sava sangamena ratnya ankur. The ankur means the sprout. Right? The sprout and the beginning of the sprout or the creep of bhakti, ratnya ankur, rupa eva, the form of that is called mati, which is this question that I just put forth. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answered in synopsis, Jivera Sarupoye Krishnera Nitya Das, Jivera Tatasta Shakti Ved Abhe Prakash. You are, in fact, constitutionally, the eternal servant of Krishna. Mahaprabhu here did not give any specificity to that idea of how you are the servant of Krishna. Simply said, you are the servant of Krishna. Why are you suffering? Because the nature of Tatashta Swabhav. Tatashta Swabhav means having a nature that is susceptible to both spiritual influence or material influence. Because of that marginal nature, one can come under the sway of the material energy, or one can be influenced by the spiritual energy. So Tatashta Jivas are of two varieties, Nitya Siddha and Anadibhada. Those Jivas who are Nadibhada have never experienced the influence in full of Swarup Shakti or the spiritual energy. And therefore, from time without any beginning, they have identified with the temporal nature of the material world, one iteration after another, technically called the cycle of samsara. Kamana, Daivana, Natrena, Jantur, Devapapache, according to your karma and the destiny aligned with that karma, a person has taken one temporary body after another in pursuit of the results of their karma and their aspirations. Understand? So, because the jivas have this marginal nature, Mahaprabhu said, therefore, this is what gives rise to suffering. Because if you come under the influence of the material energy inherently has dukkha in it, right? But not technically, because it's not the material energy which is suffering, and the suffering is also not in the jiva itself. Srila Jiva Goswami Padin Paramatma Sandarbha, he's written, Chid Ananda Atmika. Then he mentions, Chid Ananda Atmika here means dukkha pratiyogita. It means the absence of dukkha. There is no misery in the jiva, and Bhagavan's Shakti in and of itself is not miserable. It's the combination of those two things artificially that creates the sense of misery. Understand? Material energy itself is not just miserable, right? It's the Shakti of Bhagavan. But the combination vicariously of the jiva, the Tatastha jiva identifying with the material energy, that combination creates a sense of misery. In the first verse, Anuchara Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad gives an entire ontological breakdown of this. The beginning of the verse is Paramatma Vai Bhava Gonane Tatashta Ashakti Rupanam Chireka Rasanam. So then he begins the Nadi Paramatattva Jnanam Samsaraga Bhava Maya. And then he gives a whole ontological breakdown of how the jivas end up in this situation where they have a temporal identification in the material world. Understand? So, because of that tatashta nature, the jivas are subject to connecting with the material energy vicariously, not actually, and suffering. So when this question arises, it is called mati. And when that question arises and you receive the answer, one has a generic understanding, Krishna's God and I am his servant. This is called Samanya Sambandha Gyan. This is called Samanya Sambandha Gyan. Now, when a person acts on the principle that I am not this material body, that I am truly a servant of God, and they seek out how to exercise that consciousness of being the servant of God, this starts the process of Ado Shraddha, leading to getting the answers to how to serve God. Sadhu Sangha, the sadhu will say how to serve God. This is called bhajan. And then the Kriya Shakti of Bhagavan, Swarup Shakti, gives both subsidy and gives both power to the performance with our senses, because we engage in the beginning in the practice of bhakti, kriti sajja bhavat sajja bhavasa sadanabhida, right? Using the material senses we have. These material senses, in and of themselves, cannot access God. You understand? Ataha Shri Krishna namani na bhavad grayamindriya. Material senses cannot access what is God. But what happens? By the subsidy of Swarup Shakti, coming in incremental stages in the performance of bhajan. You understand? A subsidy is given to give efficacy and power to our endeavor. That subsidy is also called kripa of Guru Parampara and Bhagavan. That kripa subsidizes the practice, gives it the power to create the unfoldment or the incremental realizations, right? From sadhu sangha, bhajana, the Kriya Shakti works. That Kriya Shakti removes anarthas. Anarthas leads, removal of anarthas rather, leads to steadiness of consciousness. This is called nishtha. When the consciousness is steady, the influence or prabhav of the sweetness of Bhagavan becomes manifest. So that stage is called ruchi. Tattad bhavadi madhyure shuti dirapekshate. Right? Nasasasuniksha tal lobat utpatti lakshanam. And then the impression of a particular kind of greed or ruchi, which originally came from the influence of a sadhu, in the stage of ruchi, starts to manifest itself prominently. So when you hear the Hari Katha about the associates of Bhagavan, it resonates with the impression of a sanskar of ruchi, means an impression of ruchi acquired from a sadhu in a particular life. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakurpad has clearly mentioned this. I think it's 2.538 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami Pad is asking what determines who gets what kind of particular inclination to serve in a particular way. Yatotra masu ashwada viseshu lashamai api rati vashanaya shwadi. The particular taste a person gathers is from previous impressions in bhakti. So in the stage of ruchi, that impression becomes dominant in the chitta. So when you're hearing Hari Katha, a sweetness of taste in that particular katha, whether it is Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, Dasya Rasa Vaikuntha, whatever it might be, it becomes strong upon hearing that kind of lila. In the stage of a Sakti, an actual boss of a mood of an eternal associate with whom your ruchi is aligned, manifest on the chitta. Right? So this is mentioned also by Jiva Goswami. Tatra tadrisa sudakaraka bhasa sumalasita hridoy spatikamani. Ragatmakaya bhakti. Tadrisa ragatmakaya bhakti. Paribhaktisu api ruchi jayate. When, especially in relation to Braj, Ragatmik Jan means the eternal associates of Vrindavan. When you come to this stage of a Shakti, the abhas of a particular associate's mood reflects on the chitta. This is called their abhas of their mood. And samulasita, it nourishes, excites, gives illumination, ulas, to your own ruchi. And there's, paripatishu means a mutual nourishment. Api ruchi jayate. and it gives rise to concrete alignment with that particular kind of ruchi, that particular kind of service. Understand? So this is how the process is working. So we talked about Samanya Sambandha Gyan, but now we're getting into what is Visay Sambandha Gyan. And this is where the importance of understanding what is Diksha comes about. Because it's at the time of Diksha that this Visay Sambandha Gyan is bestowed on a disciple. Jiva Goswami mentioned, what is Diksha? Divya Gyanam Shrimanti Matre Bhagavat Sarup Gyanam Tena Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Gyanangscha. Divya Gyanam Shrimanti Matre. In the mantra. Divya Gyanam Shrimanti Matre. Bhakta, what is it? Divya Gyanam Shrimanti Matre Bhagavat Sarup Gyanam Visesh. Messing this verse up. Let me see. Just let me take time here. Divya Gyanam Hyantri Shrimanti Mantre Bhagavat Sarup Gyanam Tena Bhagavat Sambandha Visesh Gyanamscha. This shlok. He's saying, in the time of Diksha, a particular sambandha is made with Krishna. That sambandha, that relationship is Visesh. It is a specific kind of sambandha gyan. I am a gop. I am a gopi. I have a mood like Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, like Madhurya Rasa. Especially the mood of service to Madhurya Rasa in our line is prominent. That is called Manjari Bhav or Palyadasi Bhav or Radha Dasyam, like this. So that is what's given in a seed form in the mantra at the time of Diksha. So here's the issue. For many people, when you took Diksha or when you take Diksha, the consciousness is not necessarily aligned with expectation of understanding this is what's going to happen. At the time, for a lot of people taking Diksha, it was an evolution of tenure in Bhakti. I came, after 6 months I took Harinam. Then 1 year later I was recommended by somebody and I took the second initiation. Right? Technically it's called Diksha, but the sort of common parlance was I took second initiation or Brahminical initiation. Right? And it was coated with impressions of a ceremony. Fire sacrifice. If you were male, you received Janoy, or Upavit means the sacred thread. Right? And then you were designated at that point, I am a Brahmin. Right? It gave you access to services. You can now cook. You can now go onto the altar to serve Takaji. You understand? And in some places it aligned with your ability to give class, etc., etc. You understand? So mostly what was gleaned from that Diksha was a change in external status. And the internal part of it is missed, and the idea of it revealing the nature of your relationship with Krishna was missed. You understand? What became prominent was the idea of how my social status within the institution, mat, temple, whatever it might be, had changed. But really there was no deeper understanding of how this made me aligned in relation or sambandha gyan to Krishna in a specific way. So even in spite of having received Diksha, a continued samanya sambandha gyan takes place where there's a generic understanding, Krishna is God and I am his servant. And so no specificity takes place. And as long as that doesn't happen, the particular emotional content related to a particular relationship with Krishna doesn't unfold in the chitta. You understand this? It's like saying there's an organic idea that maybe any man will marry a lady and any lady will marry a man. That is a generic sort of understanding. At some point, a lady will marry a man, man may marry a lady. So this is a generic idea. But at some point, that becomes specific. I'm going to marry this lady. I'm going to marry this man. You understand? And in that is inclusive of knowledge, particularly about that person, their likes, dislikes, history, etc., etc. So in the same way, when there is the awakening of Visay Sambandha Gyan that had been given by the Diksha mantra from Sri Guru, which is imbued with Swarup Shakti. That mantra is imbued with the power to unfold your particular relationship with Krishna. When it works in consort with the holy name, which is Radha and Krishna themselves, Radha and Krishna then gradually reveal to that devotee, as they mature, their own direct forms according to the mood arising in the heart of the devotee. Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavitam ritsaro jase shut ikshita pat nanu nunam natapungsang yad yad diyad, according to your meditation, yad yad diyad, urghaya vibhavayanti tad tad vapuyase pranayase sadanugrahaya. This verse is written in Srimad Bhagavatam. When bhakti becomes mature, tvam bhakti yoga paribhavitam, when it becomes mature, then ritsaroja, on the lotus of the heart, shruta ikshita pat, learning how to see through hearing. That means when you will hear Harikatha, the revelation of the Harikatha coming in the air, right, will produce realization in the heart regarding your sambandha gyan, your particular relationship, your particular taste in serving. That's what it's doing. You understand? Shuta ikshita pat, nanu, at that time, natta, your particular form of Bhagavan that's worshipable for you, which is your eternal relationship with Bhagavan, Pungsam, the devotee, then experiences that. How? Yad yad diyad, urugaya vibhavayanti. By the various awakening of vibhavs related to their meditation. Diyad means meditation. And then Bhagavan appears in that form. So if the Sambandha Gyan at the time of Diksha, resonating with a particular impression of Ruchi, gleaned from original association with the Vaishnava, when those two things come together, it then produces the realization of a particular form of God. Tat tat vapuvase pranayase sat anugrahaya, by Bhagavan's mercy. By Bhagavan's mercy, he appears in that form, most dear. So, if you have aspiration to serve in the mood of Sakya Rasa, then Krishna will appear in that form, especially surrounded by associates like Subal, Sridhar, Madhumangal, etc. If there's inclination, it is not prominent in our line, the service in Vatsalya Rasa, then it will appear Krishna in form of like Ladhu Gopal or Bal Krishna, accompanied by elder gopis and gopis headed by Mother Yashoda Maharaj Nanda. Prominent in our line, Madhurya Rasa, especially Manjari Bhav. Then it will appear that Sri Radha and Krishna Yugal will appear, accompanied by their associates, like Lalita Visakha, and especially Rup Manjari. And then one can begin to realize, what is the position of my Guru in relation to that? Hence, what is the relation that I have? You understand? So this is how this works, right? So at that time, when there's that kind of realization, internally, one does meditation. Krishna smaram janam chasya nija prestam samanvitam. Meditates on that worshipable form of the Lord and their associates whom have the mood that you aspire to serve in. You understand? But also sevik, what is it? Seva sadika rupena, siddha rupena chatri, tad babalupsanakara, raja lok anusarata. So Rupa Goswami is given these two verses to describe the practice of Raganuga Sadhana. Understand? So then he says, Seva sadika rupena, siddha rupena chatri. In your sadhaka deha, means in the body you have now as a practitioner, you will go on doing all of the elements of sadhana. I will arise, go to Mangalarti, do Stavan Stuti, chant my fixed number of rounds each day, honor Ekadasi Tithi, honor Janmastami, Mahotsav, do all of the various angas of bhakti. Internally, I will be aligned with the pattern of thought that I just described to you. That in my practice, in my Visesambandha Gyan, I will consider that I am a Palyadasi of Radhika. This is the aspiration. And my Guru Dev, he is Nikunja Yuno Rati Keli Siddhai. He's the accomplished representative of that mood which I aspire for in my purview. It's hearing his Bhajan Siksha that I will learn how to do that service. Hearing his Hari Katha, my enthusiasm for that service and my methodology of how to obtain that service is all revealed. You understand? If it doesn't directly come from Diksha Guru, it may come from Siksha Guru. Understand? So this is how we develop a particular mood. If you do not hear these things, if you don't associate in a way by asking questions to have those things revealed, everything will remain on a certain plane of common understanding. Common understanding means, yes, I'm a servant of Krishna, Krishna is God, and I'm not the body. But the particular internal development, which is the reason people hopefully have taken up the process, because our goal is Krishna praying, as the goal of practicing bhakti. So what kind of praying will you have? To what form of Bhagavan will you have it? You have to ask these questions and begin to probe to understand this. Because your sadhana is meant to produce this. Sadhana and kripa, because your sadhana alone, right? What is that verse? Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajja Kabu Noi. Your sadhana can't produce a Nitya Siddha Bhav. Shravanadi Sudha Chitte Kariyodoy. But by purifying your chitta, you can invite the kripa of Bhagavan, which will manifest Swarup Shakti, which will reveal your relationship. Also, I've mentioned many times, you have to be attentive to the internal workings of your practice. If I go and I do everything else ritually, but I maintain a social connection with my practice. Social connection means, everybody's hearing, chanting, going to Mangalarti, going to Kirtan Festival, going to the Rath Yatra. And so I maintain a social connection with the institution, the group, mat, whatever it might be, and a social connection with my practice. And I don't extract from the practice the internal substance of it, then the practice will remain on an external level. This is just, it will remain in the stage pretty much of aspiration, and it will not grow to fulfillment. And in many cases, devotees have, at least in this life, sometimes given up on the process because of that. Because they're practicing, they're trying to do things, but there's no reciprocation coming. Some people are able to remain duty-bound to carrying out the activities. For some people, without a taste, without the arising of a reciprocation with your practice, they can't maintain, and therefore they become distracted again by material energy and are pulled off to the side. Now, it's not to say that there's not a process that's circuitous in coming to your goal. So it's not like somebody gets on and I'm just going to be fixed and it's just everything is smooth sailing. Somebody may have good bhakti samskars like that, but for a lot of people the path will be circuitous. There'll be like times when the material energy seems overwhelming and you'll tolerate, you'll deal with it, and you'll deepen your bhajan sadhan, and then the influence of bhajan sadhan will come and it will present to you maybe some micro realization and, oh yes, Krishna consciousness does work. And this sort of dualistic, circuitous staircase advancing in bhakti will take place, right? But being in tune to your internal development, right, you'll know, oh, it's progressing, it's progressing, it's progressing. There'll be outward signs, obviously, like especially when you're coming into more mature stages, you'll see the reflection of the stages. Kshanti avyakta kwalatvam, virakti manasunyata. All the different 9 symptoms related to bhav, you'll begin to see the reflections of those in your own consciousness. Kshanti, you'll become peaceful. Things will not disturb you so much because your inner mood cannot be touched by the external environment. So whatever's going on in the world, all the different social dynamics, social, political, and economic dynamics, They won't have the same bearing. Adibautic klesh, the miseries coming from the arisal of dealing with other people. And your own body and mind will not give you so much disturbance. You'll be able to tolerate, yes, I'm sick at this point. Yes, my body aches in this way. But some tolerance will come because internally there's ulas. There's stimulation coming from the practice internally. And your soul will be enlivened. You understand? So kshanti, avyata kalatam. You won't feel so much like wasting time to do anything else because there's so much reciprocation coming from the internal practice. You understand? That becomes primary. That you act vyavyaharically. I have to go to work. So vyavyahara means external dealings with people. Mahabhuto Raghunath Das Goswami this. Antra nishtakara bayalokya vyavyahara. So to the bayalok means the external world. You go to work, you do your job. Oh, good morning. How are you? So forth, so on. Internally, your bhajan process is always churning. You understand? Some friends will say, oh yes, let's go. Maybe we could have prasad at the springs or go to a picnic, whatever. Oh yeah, sure, yeah. You'll go, you'll participate, everything. Internally, your bhajan will be churning. You understand? So it doesn't mean some drastic external changes. All of the changes are basically internal. So vyata kalatam, you want to manage your time to maximize your internal development. Virakti, manasunyata. Naturally, that is the organic means of becoming renounced, becoming detached. This doesn't also have to necessarily mean a change of clothing, external appearance, or external status. It is an internal phenomenon. By the deepening of attachment to both bhajan life and reciprocation coming from bhajan life in the form of realizations, this is called a renunciation or vairagya, or virakti in this particular verse. Manasunyata, you will naturally become humble. Naturally. Looking at what is the bhajan of our Guru Vargas, how Goswamis were doing bhajan, how my Guru Parapadma is doing bhajan. It will naturally set up a state of humility in your consciousness. You will also realize that nothing in your subsidized expertise in doing kirtan, in speaking, in doing tapaji seva, in anything, none of those things are because of us. They're the subsidy of my Guru. Bhaktivinoda Thakur clearly mentioned, Yogyata vichare kichunai pai, tomara karumsar. When I examine myself, I don't find anything. I find that everything is the kripa of my Guru Dev. And then that person, if they're performing the function of seva of Guru, they're thinking, I don't have anything, everything is coming from my Guru. You understand? Ultimately, the Adi Guru is Srimati Radhika Sri Krishna. You understand? And they were illuminated. Because what is Guru? Gu Shabdat Andakarasha, Ru Shabdat Andakarasha Nirodhita. The removal of darkness of ignorance by illumination is called Guru. That function is being performed by a sadhu. Sadhu means who is sadhutva. Their qualities of living, activities, everything is sadhutva. Means it is in line with what is the ultimate goal of life. Jiva Goswami described what is a sadhu in relation to Vaishnavism. Sadhnoti sadayati cha Krishna prema iti sadhu. Sadhu means that person who's understood and is acting on the principle that the ultimate goal of life is Krishna prema. That person is called sadhu. A sadhu who has some maturation, some realization, they can perform the function of Harinam and giving Diksha, which is the methodology of removing darkness by the illumination of transcendental knowledge for others. But they don't have any abhiman that I'm Guru. Bhaktivinoda Thakur again told, Tai Sisha Tava Takya Savara Guru Abhimana Tyaji. May the idea I'm Guru, etc., go far away. Who am I? Gopi Bhattu Pada Kamalayor Dasa Das Anudas. I only want this mood of serving. You understand? I don't want anything else. Nothing tastes like that. You understand? Nothing tastes like that. In the external example, having tasted Mahaprasad for so many years, who can go and eat at any McDonald's, any of these kind of things, or eat dead flesh or any? Who can do it? Because there's been a revolution if you used to do it in your tasting. You can't do it. Similarly, if any taste in bhakti will come in your heart, You don't want anything to obstruct that kind of taste. Not being guru, not being recognized, not being scholar, not being this, not being only want that I'm Palyadasi of Srimati Radhika, and my greatest aspiration and desire is for that purpose only. Boss. Understand? So this is the way that Diksha works to create visesh or specific form of dasitva towards Bhagavan, and then Bhagavan reciprocates by revealing himself in that particular manner in your meditation, in your practice, etc. That leads to substantial practice. Just like a marriage leads to the growth of a true relationship. The idea that I'm going to marry someday, right, is one thing. That is a samanya sambandha regarding marriage. But then you meet a particular person. That is called visesh sambandha in the example we're given of marriage. So a particular relationship with a particular form of God. You understand? And then inwardly, your emotion grows in that relationship and Bhagavan is reciprocating. According to how someone surrenders to me. If someone surrenders in a generic way, Bhagavan's reciprocation is generic. Yes, I'm God, I'm Krishna. But this idea will not help you, especially if you're trying to understand what is the mood of Braj. You cannot understand it this way. It's mentioned. Sakalaya jagate more vari bhakti brajabha paiti nai sakti. You can't understand Krishna by that methodology. You have to take up first Raganuga Pravritti. Raganuga Pravritti means taking the elements of Vaidhi Bhakti and following them with the pursuit of understanding what is Rag Marg. Then in some maturation, like in the stage of Ruchi, coming on in earnest to the Rag Marg, one does bhajan according to the instructions of Guru and Guru Vargas, and the example of our Goswamis. One will study the writings of his Gurudev, her Gurudev, and the writings of our Goswami Varga, and hear from sadhus how to do bhajan. Especially someone may become bhajan shiksha guru, to show you how to practice so that you can bring out the actual purpose for what you came to the process of bhakti. So, based on hearing this in a number of instances, I thought, and I've not just started it, it's been a kind of line of thought, even when I'm traveling for serving Harikatha, that I've spoken in many cases about the need to dial in, so to speak, to the internal reality of the practice, so that we don't spend an entire life. And now what's happening also is that a sort of Judeo-Christian ideal is unfolding, because the depth of the practice is not becoming prominent. There's an idea simply to maintain faith in the generic practice will award you by the mercy of our Acharya. It'll just award you going back to Godhead at the end. So just like Jesus came and just be Christian and be settled, at the end of life you'll go back to heaven. Something like that. So we have to be careful with that, because our Goswami Varga has not stated anything like that. Certainly Guru has unlimited power, but Guru Dev is giving instruction, do bhajan. If it was simply a matter of connecting with the Guru, and Guru will at the end of your life just save you, then that don't need for all these other things. But Guru's given instruction how to develop your mood, because Guru has come to recruit sevaks on behalf of Radha and Krishna. So you think they want to constantly turn in a inferior product? Yeah, I'm just going to say, just take them, They're fully absorbed in material life, all kind of mixed bhakti, everything, but just take them anyway. That means we don't have regard for the nature of our Gurudev's mission. We don't have regard for what is my Gurudev's very dear relationship to Radha and Krishna. My Gurudev wants to give inferior product. It doesn't matter what I did, it's all about me. So when I die, I'm going to go back to Godhead because I simply believed. Or I hung around long enough to die while I still was wearing kantimal and some tilak. So don't think like this. Think very much, I'm so fallen that I cannot execute to the optimal ability. But I'm going to try my hardest. I'm going to try my hardest, always. I will chant a fixed number of rounds with dedication. I will attend all the necessary elements of Southern Bhajan, Mangalarti, I will do Shodhyay, spiritual study. I will try to serve Vaishnavas, especially pure Vaishnavas. I will try to serve their lotus feet. I will beg for their causeless mercy, always staying in a very humble state of mind. You understand? And even if you're experiencing something, tasting something, I will keep it in my Hridoya Mandir, in the temple of the heart. My Guru Parapadma told, even if you are realizing something and you project it to everybody, it's like camphor. You know, camphor, when it gets exposed to air, it kind of evaporates. So don't do bhajan like that. No need to tell everyone what I realized, this, that, did this. Just in your own heart, then do it internally. And externally, very humbly, try to serve Vaishnavas, try to set a good example, right? And be honest also. That we all may go through ups and downs, this and that, what have you. Just being honest, especially with yourself and with Gurudev. And then, gradually, we know we'll overcome all of these things. Anyway, I wanted to bring some of these points out because I think many devotees have been practicing for many years and they're not acquainted with the internal workings and realities of the practice. And it's hard to hear some of these things. I don't mean hard in the sense that it's difficult, but I mean just accessing, hearing it is difficult. Because sometimes we also develop a very generic narrative around how we speak Harikatha. Oh, you're not the body, the material world is suffering, the ultimate goal is Krishna. Krishna is very sweet, Krishna is very beautiful. How Krishna is sweet, how Krishna is beautiful? If you probe for the depth of inquiry about those things, you'll find some lacking there. You understand? Krishna is beautiful, but there's how he's beautiful. You understand? That requires studying out Goswami's writings. They've explained how Krishna is beautiful, how Krishna becomes more beautiful. So we want to go deep into all of these things, and mutually, in loving relationship, Vaishnav Maitri, we want to share one to another. No superior, inferior, this, that. Only sharing lovingly the teachings of our Goswami Varga, our Guru Parapadma, etc. This is how we should feel. You understand? Alright, my Dhanavad Pranam devotees, all goes to Srila Gurudev, all goes to Srila Prabhupada, to the entire Guru Vargas. Jai Vancha Kalapaturu Vishya Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.